You don't see that every day. But I do.
Welcome to our first fight with the Dragon Tail gang, where I ignore my own pre-approved advice. You see, when playing this game last time, I told myself, use light attacks on these guys. They're too fast for you to rush in with heavy attacks like the Arsenic Candy Girls. And for some reason I'm not quite sure of, I didn't listen to myself, so I end up trying to start combos with heavy attacks and getting kicked in the face, or some of my combos end up ending prematurely because someone kicked me in the face in mid-combo. It's a really bad idea to use heavy attacks on these guys. Thankfully, immediately after this battle I get my senses back and stop trying to do this. As with the Arsenic Candy Girls, we're going to have to end up talking about the Dragon Tail's nuances in the next fight, because I kinda goofed this one all up.
Oh man, they took the van. I'm so fired.
Don't worry. They left a trail even a blind man can follow.
As the cutscene implied, our job here is to follow the trail of statues to find the perpetrators. And we turn on our spider sense to see the statues through walls, because that's how spider sense works in this video game, I guess. You saw that in the intro tutorial as well. Sometimes the video games have weird ideas about how spider sense should work. If you ever get stuck following the trail of statues, just remember, they generally curve around the curves just like the car would. You figured they would notice they were kind of losing all the statues out the back, but maybe they were more concerned with getting away from Spider-Man. Anyway, we're near the end of the trail, which means we'll have to fight a few more Dragon Tails. And this time I can tell you that Dragon Tails are entirely invincible to juggle attacks. It doesn't matter if you lead with a light attack or a heavy attack, the Dragon Tails cannot be affected by juggle combos. You can't knock them into the air. We can still use the leaping escape attack on them to get away, but it is worth noting that they can leap in the air after us if we don't move away quickly enough. Considering our light combo recently got extended, there's no reason not to just use our basic light attack on them, since they have virtually no defense against that.
Whew. That Dragon Tail gang sure puts up some fight.
They're pretty lethal. Glad I dropped by. What do they want with these old statues?
I don't know, beats me. We got a tip on the heist from an old guy, antique collector named Chen, but he wouldn't tell us more.
Maybe I'll look them up.
Hey look, the web swing kick, which we're never going to use because there's not really a good place to use it anywhere in the game. Now, we only have one mission available, and it's the Lizard, which I assume is where you're meant to start the game for a few reasons, and we'll see why when we get there.
Dr. Kurt Connors. Time is 8:47 p.m. Well, my regeneration serum is finally ready to test on a human. And what better guinea pig than myself? I know there are risks, but I can't allow a twist of fate to undo the natural order when science can correct it. If the unthinkable happens, please see that my wife and son get this letter. Ow! Stings a bit more than I expected. I feel something happening.
Parker! That's the third call I got about giant lizards running amok in Gramercy Park. Giant lizards! Get me photos, pronto!
Right away, Mr. Jameson. Giant lizards? They aren't paying me enough.
Photo mission, huh? Guess yours truly better give you the scoop on taking a picture. Okay, head over to the hot dog cart that's been marked for you and we'll go over the basics. So, here's the deal. You want to take a picture, right? Okay. Now take a picture of the hot dog cart. Just center your camera reticle on it. Not too bad. I mean, not as good as I would have done, mind you, but I'll give you a B-. And no, you can't do any better than that, so don't bother retrying this a million times trying to get an A.
That's right, folks. Larry the Lizard has the best prices in town on name brand cell phones. Best reception, best customer service, too. Sign up today, get a free cell phone.
All that fuss over Larry? Man, JJ's gonna blow a fuse. Well, I'm here. Might as well take the picture. Guess I should give this pic back to JJ, but he isn't gonna be happy.
I said get me giant lizards, and I meant it, Parker. You think I don't know the difference between some guy in a costume and the real deal? Get me giant lizards or you're fired.
Should have known that was too easy. Guess I'll start looking in Gramercy Park.
I mean, considering Gramercy Park is where JJ told you to look in the first place, I think he has a right to be pissed this time. He can tell where that photo was taken, I'm sure. It's right outside the Bugle, not where he asked you to look.
This lizard thing's a crock.
Run! Someone help! It's the end of the world! Help! Run! Spider! Queen! Monster! That way!
Green monster, huh? Maybe Larry has a brother. Better check it out. I don't see anything, but my spider sense is definitely tingling.
I did say it seemed to me like the lizard missions is where they intended you to start, and that would be because it feels like a tutorial extension.
Get back to searching for those
We're
giant
learning about the
lizards.
camera mechanics now, which are not something we actually need to use in the main game. Therefore, optional missions that Robbie gives us. So this seems like something they wanted to get out of the way to introduce all of the game mechanics and let you explore the open world to its maximum. But, that's not the only reason I think the lizard missions were meant to be the first ones.
I got away. I think I heard it a little, though.
Better check on those punks.
Let's get the freak!
Guess the Apocalypse Gang has a max IQ test to join. I'm saying you guys are dumb, by the way.
I'm gonna have to agree with Spidey here. These guys must be pretty dumb trying to chase down a giant lizard monster. I can't even fathom a reason they would need to kill it. Just for fun or something?
I should try to track down whatever those thugs were attacking.
So the lizard creature left us a trail that we can follow with spider sense, but for some reason the trail splits off in 4 different directions and 3 of them end in dead ends, and I'm not sure how that even happens. Basically, it's trial and error whether you find the right one unless you've memorized it, which I have. I'm not sure if this is the game's attempt at teaching us how to use spider sense again, or whether they're trying to insert variety in vain, but either way, it's kinda awkward.
Hey, stop eating my hot dogs! Get off of my cart! Shoo! Shoo!
I've never been to a big city, so can someone tell me if this is the regular reaction to giant lizard creatures? Because pedestrians are walking by with no problem or anything.
Nice. That's gonna be a great shot. They all seem to run away. Guess they really don't like having their pictures taken. I think that about wraps that up. Now all that's left is getting these photos back to the Bugle.
I mean, I understand culture shock is a common thing, even when you're just moving across states or moving from a suburb to a rural area, or from a rural area to the city. But something seems off here. I think that one guy screaming and running for his life into the hot dog cart was the only guy who had the right idea.
These shots are great, Peter.
It's a Bugle exclusive. Here's tomorrow's front page, Robbie. Rampaging reptiles raid city.
We got yet another locomotion upgrade, and I'm not sure what this one is supposed to be for. I can see the wall run being useful in very, very specific situations, although like I said, it's mostly for style. But this one is even more questionable. It's more difficult to use than the regular web swing, doesn't seem to offer any additional speed, and doesn't look all that pleasant either. I suppose you could always use it just for the sake of variety, but, I mean, I'm not the kind to do that. I don't just generally swing around the city for fun, but maybe if someone wanted to do that, that's what it's for.
Dr. Connors, you here? You okay? Connors. Better catch him and find out what the heck's going on.
I won't lie, I have to try really hard not to laugh during that cutscene. Peter just seems so unenthused at the whole situation. Like, aw damn, I guess Dr. Connors turned into a lizard again, better go stop him. Actually, Peter's reactions in general are pretty mild considering all the horrifying stuff we see during this mission. Maybe he's just really jaded at this point and used to it. I know what you're thinking, but no, we can't save that man. Even if we were to get over there in time, they're actually completely intangible, which is a shame. I mean, Spider-Man's supposed to save people, right? So I said I dislike the QuickTime events in this game in general, and that's because unless you memorize them, you have very little time to react. They're probably the worst part of the game for me.
I'm guessing an entire race of lizard people hasn't just been evolving down here unnoticed.
This is our first real encounter with the lizard men, and just like all the other gangs and enemy types in this game, they have their own strengths and weaknesses. Let's go over their strengths first. They always attack in large numbers, and they spam their spit projectile any chance they get. The spit projectile is the bigger concern, by far. It can really screw you up when you're in mid-combo. Thankfully, the lizard men have very noticeable weaknesses. The first weakness being that they have the least health of any enemy type in the entire game. Their second weakness is that any combo will work on them, literally any combo at all. These two weaknesses combined basically make them cannon fodder. And that would be the second reason that I believe the lizard missions are meant to be the first ones you play, because these guys are significantly easier to fight than any of the other gangs. You may notice that in spite of the fact that they're easy to kill, I am taking them out one at a time. I'm using the light-heavy combo on them and then jumping off their head to get back behind the railing before they can spit at us. Because of course their spit doesn't go through the railing. You might be asking yourself, why aren't you just knocking over the lights to electrocute them? And that's because I wanted to have time to talk about the enemy type. I suppose I could have waited just a bit longer, but considering we've already been putting off fighting them for so long, this seemed like the appropriate time. These enemies are so weak that it's not even necessary to use the Spider Instinct, but I would still recommend it because it's the only real way to dodge their close-range spit attack. I'm sure at this point you've noticed the writhing mass that's blocking our way forward, and the only way to get rid of it is to electrocute the water with these lamps. For some reason, Spider-Man has no quips about that biological monstrosity just kind of squirming over there. Just has nothing to say about it at all.
Sorry, guys. I guess it really isn't easy being green.
You know, this whole being unfazed by lizard men thing made a lot more sense in Spider-Man 2000, where it's implied that Spidey had seen the lizard men before. You know, the Spider-Man in Spider-Man 2000 was a very seasoned hero. He had a lot of knowledge from the comics, it seemed like, so when he saw the lizardmen the first time, it made more sense that he was able to shrug it off. He already knew who the lizard was and everything. I believe his dialogue exactly was, "These guys must be leftovers from one of the lizard's experiments." I would really love to talk about this new giant lizard man enemy type, but there's only one of him and he's not going to be sticking around too long, so we'll have to do that later. Instead, let's talk about the absolute slew of tinier lizards down here. This is the first time you'll get to see what they're really good at, which is, as I said, spamming the shit out of their spit projectile. Thankfully, because they're so easy to destroy, we can spend a lot of our time in the air where their spit projectiles are less likely to hit us. A single juggle combo is enough to destroy them, so that's what I use here. Gets the job done real fast, and it puts us in the air so that way we can avoid their spit. I'm sure you can tell just from watching that these guys are rather underwhelming to fight after the Dragon Tales, Arsenic Candy Girls, and even the Apocalypse Gang. There just isn't a whole lot to them, but at least the hit sounds are still really satisfying. Having enjoyable hit sounds in a beat 'em up is important. You can still have a good beat 'em up without that, but it does make it more difficult. The second biggest issue I have with the QuickTime events is that the button prompts have nothing to do with what's actually being performed on screen. There's like no relation at all. Is that too much to ask for? Spidey doesn't really have any comments on that either. He's just entirely stone cold. I like that the camera pans back over to where the lizards came from. I want to think that that's what Spidey was looking at. He's like, well, I guess that's where I'm headed. That QuickTime event goes so fast that I've never been able to successfully complete it. I'd love to talk about the giant lizard enemy type, but unfortunately we trigger a cutscene.
That wall's too tough for me to break down, but I bet I can melt it.
The task we have here is pretty simple. We throw a flaming barrel into the writhing mass, and then lizard men pop out. We destroy the lizard men, and then throw another barrel into the writhing mass. As the game says, we do just need to hold circle near the barrel. We don't need to press the control stick in any direction. Just hold down circle and let go. I appreciate the fact that they break up the barrel throwing with enemy waves, but it has so little impact on the outcome. At first glance, the lizardmen may seem harder to fight in this room, since there's less places to move, but you can easily just jump up on the balcony or jump down where the writhing mass is, and they'll take forever to follow you, giving you plenty of time to reorient yourself. Thankfully, Spidey doesn't have any regenerating health or some such nonsense, otherwise stuff like this would completely break the game. Alright, now in this next room, let's finally talk about the giant lizard enemy type. The bigger giant lizard. So, the bigger giant lizard enemy type, he has a lot of health. That's it. All of your combos still work on him, and he's very easy to juggle and knock around, as you just saw. His big health bar is his only positive trait. I do understand this is one of the big story missions, one of the bigger story missions, you know. Dr. Connor's turning into the lizard is a huge deal, but it does go on a little bit too long for my tastes. I would love to say that introducing 2 of the bigger lizards at once makes a difference in the combat, but it really doesn't. They're complete pushovers, as you saw. Even when they're mixed in with the smaller lizards, they're barely noticeable. They just take a bit longer to deal with. Now, if you introduce these guys in really large numbers, as with the smaller lizards, like if you replaced every small lizard in the level with the larger lizards, then I think that would make a huge difference. You know, it's not just how the enemies behave, but the enemy placement that matters. And while having the bigger lizards in smaller numbers seems to make sense, it's really a detriment to the game design. If you do happen to get overwhelmed in one of these rooms, you can always just jump out of the water where their spit can't actually hurt you, and then jump back in later. Because they're too stupid to follow you most of the time. I think you can probably see why I wanted to save the lizard missions for the 3rd video, because this gives a really bad first impression of the game's combat. These enemies are incredibly underwhelming. Oh, but don't worry, don't you worry, they will find their use toward the very end of the game. Treyarch understood what they were good for, it just takes a while to get there. So in the next room I get a bit disoriented, but I'm attempting to show you that you don't actually need to fight the lizard men here at all. You can just jump straight to the exit, which I do eventually, after I figure out where the exit is. You know, I feel like Spider Instinct and Spider Sense were mislabeled. Spider Sense is what protects Spidey from immediate danger, and Spider Instinct sounds like something like an intuition. So I feel like they really should have been switched. Then again, I suppose you could make a good argument for either one. For this next area, we're going to avoid the lizardmen entirely by running along the pipes, which I think definitely was not intended, seeing as how easy it is to fall down the cracks. But still, we can do it, so we're doing it.
Bet those grinders would hurt.
I will feed whatever's left of you to my brothers.
That's no good. I'm really stringy.
You go to your doom now.
Is that where this belt goes? I was wondering.
You know, Toby, why don't you redo that one? Let's give you a retake.
Sorry, Doc. Down here, it's grind or be ground.
The fight with the lizard is pretty cool, but it does go on a while, which as I understand is a common complaint about the game. I don't feel the criticism is invalid, but as with all beat-em-ups and action games in general, I think the idea is that the repetition will stop you from cheesing the battle, but they overdid it a little bit. So, in his first phase, the lizard has 2 attacks. He has a leaping slam, and he has a leaping grapple. The leaping slam is signified by the purple caution sign, and the leaping grapple is signified by the yellow caution sign. We can use Spider Instinct to dodge the leaping grapple and counterattack easily, but we cannot use the Spider Instinct to dodge the leaping slam, so I recommend dodging the leaping grapple and counterattacking then. It is possible to attack after his leaping slam, but this is easier.
Okay, psychopathic lizard who was once a man I respect has no qualms about hurting me.
Now, no matter how vulnerable the lizard is, your second attack always seems to miss if you do a combo, so make sure your third attack is heavy. That's where the most damage will be dealt. The first, third, and fourth attacks are guaranteed to hit unless he interrupts you, so I like to lead with a light, make sure the third attack is heavy, and use the leaping escape for the fourth hit. That seems to work best for me. If you instead decide to use all light attacks, then the fight will go on a lot longer, and if you use all heavy attacks, he will probably escape or interrupt you before your combo finishes.
Be grateful. In death, you will be spared subjugation by the rightful rulers of this planet.
That would be the mice, right? I'm pretty sure it's the mice. I don't want to hurt you, Doc, but you aren't leaving me much choice. To do it, but until you're KO'd, I'm not going to be able to help you.
Not stop me and my brethren from attaining our birthright.
So now in his second phase, things have changed a bit. It's actually easier to counterattack during his leaping slam now because his leaping grapple has been replaced with a combo. A combo that very easily drains your entire Spider Instinct. So our new strategy is to wait until he lands his leaping slam and then perform a combo on him. The downside to this is that we have to perform the combo at just the right time or it passes through him or he interrupts it. In spite of these downsides, I still find it way easier than trying to counter his combo, so we're just gonna have to be patient. I do recommend using the same combo we used for the first phase because, as before, the second hit doesn't count. And I did show you the first phase in its entirety because I thought seeing the repetition was important, but I'm gonna skip through the second phase using a montage. I assume you'll be thankful.